Call meeting to order. We resolved that the agenda for the February 27th, 2023 meeting be accepted as presented. So please move that. Councillor Fisher, seconder. Councillor McDonald, all in favor? Carried. We resolved that the special meeting of council be recessed to allow council to hold a reconvened public hearing to receive representations from any person who wish to make them in respect to various applications, radiation applications. Same, please move that. Councillor Jones, second. Councillor McGregor, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so just so everybody's aware that this is just for the additional information. If I go back to the tabling motion that was presented in January, I guess it's December 20th.
It was.
Rather than January. The tabling motion was be it resolved, variation application be tabled to February 21st to allow for further information to be obtained from the owner as far as the holding tank, the applicant as far as authorization, and community and region planning as for a written report. We've received all those and everybody has a copy of them. If anybody want to comment on those individual items, please come forward and do so. Everyone has a copy if you wish to come. Sure. Let us know who you are.
Head of council, chief administrative officer, and members of council. My name is Patricia Warburton. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my spouse, Trent McCann, with regards to reconvening of this public hearing application for variation order B722. We're constituents and we're strongly opposed, as you're aware, and we've lived on this property for over 40 years. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, members of council, for reviewing the last presentation, the letter submitted by Dr. Glennis Lewis, and her letter dated February 21st, 2023, in response to the submission made by the applicant. My preference would be to have no interruptions during presentation, if at all possible. We do not need to regurgitate our concerns related to the Act statutes for the province of Manitoba, our zoning bylaws, along with the development plan for this area, but may highlight on it. This is not about people, this is about land. People come, people go, but land remains. We know in December 20th presentation, we referred to the zoning bylaws regarding lawfully existing nonconformities that continue indefinitely, provided the use is not intensified. But we know that with the zoning bylaw, keyword minor zoning variance exists and supported by Bill 19, the Planning Amendment Act. The newly revised planning handbook 5.2 to 5.7.
Well, I'm going to just stop you there. I'm sorry, you don't want to be interrupted, but yes. You have to get back to the points.
Okay. So
the reconvening is here for, please.
Okay. Now the request for the parcel that measures 100 feet by 125 feet doesn't come close to the zoning requirements. There's conformity of all the properties of the letter that he has submitted. The applicant submitted a letter stating that we're not conforming, whereas we are. The only parcel that isn't is the one that is in question. The smallest he has indicated, the lot is 0.95, and it's still larger than the land identified here today.
Ms. Warburton, I'm going to stop you once again.
Yes.
You have to refer back to the items that we've been reconvening for. It's either on the holding tank, the authorization, or the written report from community planning. Please refer to those items only.
Okay, so I guess I'm misunderstanding. So I just wanted to show that piece of land, how it's all going to fit. I can't see how it's going to fit.
Well, I think it's indicated within the report from community planning and development. That is there if you want to refer to that.
Okay.
This person speaking, you can get your chance.
So I'm trying to refer to that. I'm coming up to it.
Okay.
If you would allow me to speak a little bit further, please.
Okay.
0.95 feet. That property alone is 217.5 feet in frontage and 276 feet deep. So it is conforming there. Again, I'm going to skip a lot of stuff that I wanted to say today, but we have paid as the constituents of the municipality approximately $100,000 for a development plan that we are negating in this circumstance. The lake is in a state of emergency that this summer, that now with removal of all these trees that we're going to be seeing removed and cleared and the vegetation cleared, it's going to place us into another situation that may result in more taxes. In addition, following consultation with our insurance company, we have been informed that and advised to remove all of our stately trees on our property within the property lines to avoid damage to occur to structures that are built on that property.
I'm sorry, you said the insurance company advised you? You have a written report for that?
I didn't get a written report, but if I have to, I can submit one. No problem.
I'm not aware of any insurance company's ever said that. So, and I was in the insurance field for
He has
many years.
50% right to sue us. And so with that being said, there will be a mass removal of trees, not just for the build, but also for all, well, two sides of our property. That will leave us wide open. He's indicated that he would move his garage to fit for privacy of ourselves and himself. So that tells me already he's too close to me, too close to him. There'll be no trees surrounding the property because it will be a mass clear out and it'll be open to all. The land, by risk of the excavation, because it is an elevation, the land is 100 by 125 feet. The elevation is approximately 41 feet.
Once again, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to ask you to refer only to this documents that have been presented. This is a reconvening on the basis of the motion that was passed in December. It has to do, if you have something from this written report, please refer to it. Or if it has something to do with authorization or the holding tank, please refer to that.
So give me a moment to go through my speech. I'll try to stick to it. I keep thinking I've got the right page and I don't, obviously. So, additional culverts will be needed. Holding tank, the spacing for the holding tank and the property lines, along with the spacing for wells, is not marked. This is questionable with the location of the tank and the driveway as well. We know the holding tank measurements from the outside of the tank, not the middle of the tank. So how does that fit into the area? We have to keep in mind too, Lake Committee Road is narrow, and on last meeting, he mentioned the pump out truck would sit on the road. We will not have the road blocked for emergency service vehicles or to put the septic pump driver at risk for pumping out from the roadway. Land shifting is going to be a problem because he's digging into a bank to try to build a house as it's mentioned in his drawings. That would require additional, according to bylaws, engineering consultant with professional engineers.
But once again, I'm going to ask you once more time, I'm going to give you only one more opportunity. Please refer to the report or as the table motion went. That's what we want to hear. We heard this before.
Can I have you repeat it back to me, please?
As I said, the council would for further information to be obtained from the owner in regard to the holding tank, authorization for the applicant, and a written report from community and regional planning. We've got the report. You were given the report. If you have something in the report, please bring it forward. If not, we're not going to go through the whole thing again.
But his letter.
Pardon me?
His letter is part of that report, though.
His letter is not part of that report. The report came from Mr. Smith. You'll have your opportunity, okay?
So then I guess I can't say too much more because I'm not understanding what I'm limited to, because it all encompasses everything we need to address that around the municipal planning, community planning letter.
Did you get a copy of this report?
I did, and that's what I based this on.
No, you didn't base it on that, because this report doesn't have anything to do with that, what you've been talking about. I'm sorry.
Okay, what about zoning bylaws?
The zoning bylaw is indicated here as to this is a non-conforming legal property.
Okay, so it's non-conforming legal property.
Right.
So with that being said, bear with me for a second. So even though you say it's legally non-conforming, the variance request does not meet considerations for compatibility, detrimental effect, minimal modification, or consistency in a well-established zone. is how I view
Okay,
this plan by the community planner that you have just indicated for them to refer to.
okay. Is that the context you're dealing with?
That was a bit of it, yes. I
Could
believe
you just repeat that last statement, please?
the last statement, the variance request does not meet considerations when we think about zoning bylaws for compatibility, detrimental effect, minimum modification, or consistency with a well-established zone.
Anybody hear that?
Nowhere does it indicate the elevation of that piece of land, which is 45 or 41 feet in elevation from lowest point to highest point, meaning a mass excavation is going to have to occur.
Okay,
Is the municipality prepared, the taxpayers prepared to put new culverts? As a taxpayer, I don't want to pay any more
understandable. Sure.
for one build. Also, the lake hasn't been resolved, the problem's there. Are we going to be responsible because we are then contributing to a problem that's already there, because the trees and the vegetation will be gone that absorbs this water? Taxpayer, again, are we going to be resolved? I know there's a federal mix in here too, but the bottom line is it will come back to the taxpayers of the community
Possibly,
for one person.
possibly. I don't know.
Can you
When you're
guarantee?
talking culverts and everything else, I'm not sure what, but I don't see that in this report. So
Well,
if you can indicate where it is in this
Yep.
report, I'll view it.
the culvert is on the, okay, the culvert was put in at the end of the Hunter's driveway to our west driveway. And it's right in the middle of that property, the non-conforming property, and it runs under the road directly to the lake. That is going to be interrupted now. We need an engineer's report in order to satisfy the water flow that comes up from the hills and the height in the back.
So the water's not coming off the hills now?
Yes, it is, but it is going through the culvert, and the trees are absorbing, the vegetation's absorbing. We disturb that, we're going to contribute and compound a problem that is already in existence and not resolved. The level of the lake is now, as of February hold on here. Give me a moment. As of February 5th, the lake is at 5 feet. Now, because it's subject to flooding, it's situated approximately 5 feet above the current lake level as of February the 5th. The lake has already been drained 26.5 inches to 26 inches. Now, if we proceed to remove all this stuff and more water comes, we're contributing. We're the taxpayer. I don't want to pay this bill.
Sure. I understand.
That's the bottom
I
line.
understand.
And we can get funding from governments, absolutely, but it's not going to be enough to pay this bill for one build.
Right.
The other part is we need engineering consultants, we need geoscientists. I mean, these are all approved by the province of Manitoba, and it's law, is what I've read.
So you said that, you've seen that in the report here?
Yes,
It's in the report that we need engineers? Can you outline that for me, please?
I believe it was in the section when I read the municipal act.
No,
I'm
I'm not
joking.
asking about the municipal act, Ms. Warden. I'm asking about this report. Part of this reconvening is on this report. Can you point it out in the report, please?
Right now, I don't have a report in front of me, so I can't. refer
Okay,
to it.
well, so
Has
then
a
we
report.
have to, we'll have
Can
to.
somebody show me a report, please? Thank you. Well, when it talks about hardship to the neighbors, of course, it's gonna cause hardship. I mean, that's. Okay, so under Manitoba Environment, Climate and Parks for holding tank water, et cetera. Okay, there's licenses and permits.
They're required?
Permits for development, which would fall under qualified engineers and Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of the province of Manitoba.
Yeah, to be
But
required for
nothing-
building that property there, that's right.
That's right, and at whose cost? I'm a taxpayer.
So that's up to the person who's building.
Okay, and it would be monitored?
The building inspectors, you got all that kind of stuff that they could do it through a development permit. The permits are presented.
Okay.
And then at that time, they abide by the permits.
So in face of a sale of a property, because this is conditional, could it be then that he buys the land and then it finds out from the geoscientist that this big excavation of land that deep with water levels so high, he's not going to get home insurance?
No,
Who is
Again,
he-
you're dealing in hypotheticals. We can't deal in, we gotta deal with the information we have in front of us. We have to deal with that. Hypothetical is not gonna help us in this situation.
Okay, so the bottom line is, I don't want my taxes going up because one person wants to build a place. I want my privacy protected because somebody's already mentioned that he's gonna move the garage so it faces, so it's for his privacy and ours. That tells me he's already too close and he's worried about his privacy. I think in the rural living, we choose to live rurally for a reason. I don't want somebody on my doorstep. And that's really close.
Understandable. Sure.
You know, we pay our taxes. We have 2 properties. We have paid diligent. We've never been late. We've never missed. We are the constituents. We are the taxpayers. And I think we need to be thought of here in this case.
Very much so.
At this point, I'm not sure what else I should even speak of because I did have a very nice presentation ready that covered a lot of things that will come to be for if this goes through.
Well, I
A lot of
appreciate
homework
that.
was done.
I appreciate that. But as I said, the reconvening is done on the information that was requested at the tabling motion. We've heard this before, so.
Yeah.
I understand that.
So we
There's
don't know where
always gonna be
the-
new information come forward.
So we don't know where the well, we don't know where all this stuff is gonna fit on the land because he wants to face the lake. He has to twist the house to see the lake because otherwise he's facing the road if it's built to conform.
So let me just leave it at this. Community planning has basically said that the request, everything requested by it is not excessive to accommodate, basically is what they're saying. And you're saying otherwise than that, but you're just in contesting this report.
I'm contesting this report because they haven't looked at all values that are going to affect this build and the properties around it.
Okay.
Buildings will shift, property will shift. It's a mass excavation. We're going to contribute to the flooding of the lake. When we full know well that moving trees and vegetation is going to create higher elevation of that lake. I don't want to pay the taxes on that. Bottom line.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, okay. Any councilors want to have any questions here?
Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have one.
Yes.
You said that the lake is in flood right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it like this in the last 40 years?
Well, like they say, the 200 floodplain zone now, and we have a lake that's flooding its banks. They're still looking at a way to bring it down because it's still high. It will go higher if we get torrential downfall of rain. Then what?
Okay.
I mean, anybody can take a risk, I get it, but if we can prevent further catastrophe, we already have one family at the end of the lake that has suffered the consequences of the flooding. Do we need more? You know, the water level there is pretty high in front of that property.
Yeah, flooding is not good.
No, it's not.
No,
We
and nobody
understand.
asks to be flooded out, and you can't stop it. It's fed by the lands, it's fed by the springs. I mean, it's something that we have no control over. This is Mother Nature, and we don't want to flirt with her,
She can be mean.
definitely.
Sorry, did I miss the answer? Have you seen this before? Did that?
Flooding, it has come up high, but not this high. But this might be the thing of time to come. I don't know. And that's why they're preparing now for a big major project to help manage it, but nobody is coming forth to the plate. It may end up being as is indefinitely. I don't know, because where are they going to get the money? Who's all coming to the table to discuss it? It's going to be federal and municipal, and that will include the taxpayer. Why are we going to contribute to that by adding more houses to this right now?
Right. Anything else?
So
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you.
Before my husband comes up to speak, I'd like you to answer this question for me. The letter we got from the CAO says, further to the correspondence sent on January 19th, find and close the additional information requested by council. The additional information by council also includes a letter from the applicant
Yes.
to the RM.
Yes.
That is very degrading, and I think we're allowed to speak on it.
No.
Why not?
No.
We were not told we could not speak on it. We get here tonight, we have spent hours preparing for our presentation, hours and hours and hours.
The council.
And you're telling us now that we can't do our
So
presentation?
the council's not taking that into effect in this reconvening either. Council can't take that into effect. They can't take letters from other people on the other side of that as well. This reconvening was done to do the table motion, which was those 3 items that were on that request. So that's what we're reconvening for. We could rehash this for days and days and months. That's not what we're here for. We're here to make this, the hearings are done in an orderly fashion, and this is the orderly fashion that's going to follow. We're not going to have a representation from the applicant. We're not going to have a representation from other people as far as what their personal situation is. This is going to be dealing with this report and the request from that time.
So why was not my information not provided to us? Well, we got, and furthermore, we only got our letter on Friday in the mail. If Joni hadn't asked Joni for it by email, we wouldn't have had it. Our next door neighbor does not have his, and people down the road.
Things can happen with mail. Unfortunately, that's what happens.
Well-
But all this information comes into us on a regular basis, whether it be today, yesterday, the day before, and it goes into the information given to you, because we're not gonna hold back in information. We're gonna give it all to you. But what can be discussed here is in a different category.
Okay.
That's all we're saying.
I also believe that you asked for house plans at that meeting. Mr. McGregor, did you not ask for house plans that day?
More to do with the holding tank.
My intention was to understand the footprint. I wasn't asking for house plans. That wasn't part of. It doesn't matter to me where he's putting it back in, right? I was just.
I don't care, he's putting his bathroom.
In the footprint of the.
Where's he putting his driveway?
Yeah.
Is that not important? Where
Well,
the holding tank goes?
That wasn't my question.
Anyway, in the future, I would just like to make the point that if this is what we're gonna talk about, the pieces of paper we're gonna talk about, make sure that we are advised of that upfront before we arrive at a meeting
well, and
and get
again,
put on the spot.
yeah, and again, and if we go back to the tabling motion, it was very clear. Table 2, February 21st, 2023 meeting of council to allow for further information to be obtained from the owner, applicant, and community regional planning.
So the letter from the owner should be part of this thing, because you just said that.
It was
Information from
It was
the owner.
authorization from the owner, because that was a question made, brought forward by the individual here that it was not proper because the applicant is not the owner of the property. That had to be clarified. That's what that comes about.
So you're cherry picking exactly what you
No,
want
there's no
for,
cherry picking here. It's
information.
very clear that that comes from the owner. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to understand what I'm understanding clearly now, the letter that they were referring to, that they felt is not being considered.
no, the information that was passed on council got copies of every pieces of information that came in from individuals. Regional community planning did a report up.
Yes.
We asked for a report.
That's under discussion.
That's what's under discussion. The other stuff had to do with the holding tank and the authorization by the
Those are the
individual.
only 3 things that are,
That's the only thing we're gonna discuss here.
anything we see since the initial meeting that does not address any of those are not going to be
Are
considered.
not gonna be considered.
Correct, thank you.
So how come this report's been sitting with you guys since January 11th and nobody got it? It's dated right on it. It's a government document. It's dated.
It is, and everybody got a copy. You have a copy in your
I
hand,
have
do
a
you not?
copy right here. So how come it says here from January 11th? This is the end of January.
You got it for this meeting. That's what we brought it for this meeting.
We know that the Pony Express doesn't go very fast, but
Excuse, just a moment.
In the original letter that I had sent out, I had indicated that once we had received all 3 documents, that we would send copies out. The final document is
Well, yeah,
dated and received.
you're holding a
February
meeting and you don't
16th.
get the information of. Like, I don't know what type of, nobody's addressed any drainage on this land. Like, you don't even know what the drainage is over there, Dave.
I've been out there. Every counselor,
So how- who's
every
supposed to
member of
pay for
council has been
the
out
ditch in there to cover the, moving the water from coming off the piece of property?
the land is there.
The land isn't there.
You mean it's not there?
What are you gonna do? You gonna dig a big hole and let the water sit there?
Everybody puts a house on property, doesn't mean that the water is gonna go directly there. That's not the discussion here. I'm not gonna get into that kind of thing. We went into this with the basis of this report had come from community planning. We're dealing on building a house on a piece of property.
Well,
You don't have,
now, what you're telling me is that you're gonna, if this gets passed, then anybody over there can take their 5 little lots and get it approved through this council and build a house on top of it.
everybody,
There's 30 lots over there, or 5 or these little pieces of land.
Okay.
In 1916 or whenever it was that was put in.
we have an individual who built a house here. Mr. Smith built a house not very long ago. Did
And
you
I
have-
had to buy 2 acres. I had to buy an extra lot
Yeah, I'm
to get
asking you.
up to my 2 acres.
You're trying to compare apples to oranges.
No, just a minute, I'm not-
You're talking about a little piece of land. It's not even, it's a third of an acre.
Yes,
The smallest piece that these people are talking about is 3/4 of an acre. There's quite a bit of difference between a third of an acre and 3/4 of an acre.
But everybody who's on that land in Oakland has over 2 acres property. There's not one person that is living out there that has less than 2 acres.
Mr. Smith, did you have to have a water report when you built your house?
I had a water report.
You did not require it.
I know I had to have 2 acres because I was told I had to have 2
That's not my
acres.
question. My question was to you.
Well, quit cherry-picking your questions then.
No, but this individual's talking about a water flow issue, and you didn't have to have a water flow issue for when you built your house.
Because
That's
I
not part of
was
it.
a lot smarter than that. I wouldn't have bought the property if I knew there was.
So anyway, let's carry on with this. Does anybody else wish to make a
The
presentation?
only thing I want to make sure is that the municipality is going to come up with this money to fix the water from going across the road and whatever else.
The municipality is always there to do any kind of
No,
thing. In-
that's-
Can I get the gentleman's name just so I can?
Mr. Millet.
Is any other further representation?
You didn't answer the question on top of this, about whether anybody over there can take their 5 little pieces of land.
That's all
and
hypothetical.
put it on
We're not
those
gonna deal with
lines.
hypotheticals, Mr. Smith.
I'm not, I'm saying that if you approve this, it's not hypothetical, if you approve it.
This is
Does
something that
that mean that that's the way it goes then?
the council will approve it on the basis of the information we have. Or
So otherwise, what you're
disapprove.
telling me is that then after, if you approve it, then anybody can go out and divide, take 29 acres and divide it into 100 lots and sell them off.
You gotta
Is
go
what
through,
you're
you
telling
gotta go through the same process.
And it'll be approved because you already set the precedent.
No.
Actually, I think it's a slightly different process, what you just suggested.
Subdivision.
You just suggested subdivision, which
But
is very
subdivision, very
different from what we're considering. Very
Yeah,
different.
this is a variation, not a subdivision.
It still don't matter. It's
Well-
still a subdivision.
No,
They're
it's
taking
not.
5
No, it's-
lots.
No, this variance can be done by council, so. Is there any further,
Well, then you sell them off one at a time.
Well, you can't stop on it.
so if there's no further,
I just have one question.
certainly,
So, the information in the letter that was sent by the applicant
yes,
will not be considered?
not be considered by the council.
Okay, because it's full of mistakes.
I didn't even read it. Pardon? I did not even read it.
Oh, okay,
No,
that's fine, then I don't have any intention of dealing with that.
In my opinion, the letter should have never been sent out if it's not supposed to be considered.
every piece of information we got here, Dave, went out to everybody else that was involved in this procedure,
To everyone else,
to everybody.
to the councilors?
When it's a counselor, certainly a counselors have to have.
Okay, so the letter went to the councilors?
Went to the counselors, but
To be
it's not considered in as far as this reconvening.
Okay. Because it's full of errors.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into it because
No,
it's,
well,
it
I.
hasn't got a basis for anything we're doing.
In my opinion, that it's full of errors, and it is, because they're. So the only other thing I would have to say is, if you look at the house plans, the driveway's not indicated in the plan. The holding tank indicated on this map appears to be in the middle of the driveway. Now, I don't know. There's no driveway indicated, so I don't know. The people at wastewater told us that they would not advise a holding tank to be underneath the driveway. And that's to do with the holding tank I'm speaking on.
Yes,
So, and also to do with the holding tank needs a pump out. All other properties on this road have a place for a septic truck to pull off. We get pumped out about once a year. As do all the properties but one. This is going to be quite more frequent, and that everybody else has to have a place for the septic tank to pull, or truck to pull off the road. So that has to be considered here as well.
there has to be compliance on that. They made it very clear, compliance has to be done with that into the application.
And again, my concern was the culvert, which is going to be in the way, I do believe. I don't know if the councilors know where the culvert is or if you saw where it is, but it is to do with the drainage and the septic tank.
I can tell you, every council member.
Yes, I
has
know
been out-
I know,
to see.
that's good, and I appreciate that. I had carefully drawn, and we had carefully made a GPS map of this property for you people. And I don't know whether you want it now or not, obviously you don't.
We got Google Maps too.
Yeah, well, this is more than a Google map. It shows heights. Google heights are incorrect. We did a manual walkthrough with a GPS, and the heights are all incorrect on Google, so you cannot go by that. It's incorrect. And I'm not an engineer, and it's not a lethal survey by any matter of means. It was done with a handheld GPS, but it shows all the heights.
This is just done for general.
Yeah, no, I understand
That's
that,
all.
but we did this specifically for this meeting.
Insurance purposes.
Well,
The trees.
Yeah, we were also told by our insurance company that we would be 50% responsible if trees fell on this property or a slide occurred after it was dead. So I'm not sure.
What insurance company you're talking to, or maybe to a broker, not an insurance company, but in any case, that they could say anything they want at that time, unless some.
Yeah, they can say anything they want to when there's a claim. I know that.
They protect you from those kind of things within your own insurance policies, right? So that's not, again, not part of this.
All right, well, that's fine.
The conclusion falls within the guidelines on people that.
Conclusion falls.
Yeah.
So
Should be noted.
it should be noted.
I'll just wait. You go ahead. That's it. Yeah, we'll wait and I'll just listen to.
I'm going to read a brief conclusion that I wrote. You can take it or leave it. I don't really care. In conclusion, it should be noted that this non-conforming piece of land will not be compatible with the surrounding area. Now, that is in the report. We're basically sitting on the side of the road. All other acreages are set back to the required amount. Will be detrimental to our health, constantly having to worry about driveway slides or collapse during rainstorms. Our seclusion and privacy will be compromised. It will negatively affect the value of our property. It's not even close to being within the RR2 bylaw. And the next smallest acreage is more than 3 times and is compatible with the surrounding area.
That's
That's
Mr.
all I
Hunter.
have.
Mr. Hunter? Hunter, is it?
Yes, Dave Hunter.
And our realtor has advised us that our property value will go down if this house is built.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going for reassessment right away.
My name is Donna McIntosh, and I spoke at the last meeting as well. So I just want you to repeat to me, we can speak about the holding tank, the regional planning, and what is
The authorization from the individual that is selling the property. The applicant was the person buying the property, and they're brought into question because it should be done by the person who owns the property.
Okay,
So that has been clarified.
okay,
Okay, that was in the document.
okay. Well, I'm quite shocked that we weren't notified of that. This is really, is this how this is always done? Does it get kind of sprung on people at the very last second?
You said you were in the last meeting, but that was a question brought forward by the first speaker in the original meeting. Is that correct?
I don't recall them saying that this is all we could speak about. No, I don't.
No, but I see, as to what can be spoken of. But
Yes.
that's the reconvening motion, the tabling motion was done to get this information only.
Okay.
Everybody has given their information at that time.
Okay.
So that's why it's only for this information.
Okay, well, a lot of mine does pertain to the holding tank, septic, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Now, just let me read through here a bit so I make sure that I'm
No,
on
we
the
have
right.
lots of time.
Okay. Well, I started off, and this is somewhat, well, it is related to it, about the septic or holding tank. And I had mentioned at the previous meeting, and my exact words were this, what about maintenance vehicles that do anything on this property for maintenance? And could this be a problem? Those were my exact words. I checked. So by that, and after that, I mentioned that it's a school bus route, and of course, large snow plows going down it. So by that, what I meant was, you have to have room for large vehicles. Like, this place would be fairly close to the road. That's a safety issue, in my opinion. Yes, everybody rural deals with septic services of some sort. I totally realize that, but my words were very twisted in the applicant's letter. In no way did I say that it would be the only residence that would require services of a septic removal, which was stated in his letter to council. I never said that. And I didn't indicate that in any way, shape, or form. And I just wanted to state that every other property out there, Lake Clemente Road, does have sufficient laneway for any such large vehicles for any sort of maintenance. So it's a safety issue. Okay, so I just didn't want my words. I wanted my words to remain exactly what they were, and not changed. Okay. Now, in regards to septic field or tank of any kind, the applicant has stated that sorry. To find out where exactly that is. That each of, quote, these sites that are under 2 acres, which they aren't, but anyway, or on lakefront should have a holding tank or should not be operating with a septic field of any kind. It's false. Like, first off, every occupied house on Lake Clemente Road in Oakland-Wawanesa does conform to the 2-acre bylaw. And also many rural properties all over this province have been grandfathered in as far as septic. That's just how it is for anybody. So nobody on Lake Clemente Road has had any special treatment in that regard.
Yeah, again, you're referring back to the applicant's letter, and I've never read that, so I'm not sure if I got it. I didn't go through the whole thing at all as far as what it is.
Oh, okay. But I'm just stating that if there are properties that have whatever, septic, I mean, if anything is replaced, that is when you get into newer existing environmental. Okay, it's whatever new builds, or if you are replacing a tank or a field. I mean, it's got nothing to do with people having what they have now. That's all I'm saying. Like that's not an argument because it's like that across the whole
It is
province.
what it is.
Yeah. So that's my statement on that. I'm trying to just see if I have anything referring to that. Yeah, I guess the only thing I have to say about as far as septic field or holding tank, as long as you have 2 acres, you can have a field. We purchased one piece of property and I think it was in 2015. And it was shy of we came to the municipal office and asked, and they told us it was RR2 zoning, this very same municipality. Okay, so we bought another piece of land that was non-conforming. It was a very small piece of land. I mean, I don't remember the exact measurements, but it was small, and it was similar, like close to the road. We bought that to conform to the RR2 because that's what we were told. So I mean, that cost us money. We pay more taxes. That's what we were told. There was no. I mean, it was like that's how it is, end of story. So that's what we did. And it seems that I feel that's how it should stay, I guess. So as far as the municipal, what is it, regional planning, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, that's their job. I guess that's what they do, but I feel that is their opinion. And there's a whole lot more to look into than just their opinion.
Obviously, all the time. That's why we have public hearings and stuff, so we can hear these individual comments to it.
Okay.
But it's also meant to get the proper information out so everybody's aware of everything as far as what's right, wrong, or otherwise.
Okay. Well, and I mean, I read that quite closely, and I mean, the fact is here, it's I think an 86% variance. That's a lot. There's a lot of things to consider. I mean, when you have, generally speaking, out in the rural area, you would not have to worry about affecting your neighbor's roof with your trees. I'm sure, I'm not saying never, I'm saying, I don't think it would be to this extent. That's huge. Like those trees out there are big. Like these aren't little trees. Generally speaking, that I don't think that would be an issue even. And that's why, you have, 15 feet away from somebody's property line is not a lot of space. Okay, I guess I can't say a lot of the things that I had written down here, but I said what I feel I can. And I thank you everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I just have one little thing to say, so I won't even get up. Without a well on this drawing, how do you guys, I don't even understand how you can pass this with minimum clearances from the septic tank back to your septic, the whole thing. There are minimum clearances even from tanks and stuff. I don't know how you can look at this without knowing where the well's gonna go.
Well, again, there's all kinds of requirements for wells and sewage and everything else, and that's all through the permit system, and that has to be done for that way. And we respect that.
But you're saying about the size of the tank and location of the tank and everything, which he supplied, but without the area of the well, he has no idea where he can put the tank until he knows where he can put the well.
Okay. Any further? Okay. Whereas all representatives in regard to, sorry.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah, if I could.
Just want to make sure that we're following guidelines, okay?
Understand. I
made no attempt to misrepresent what anyone said at the last meeting, and if I did, then I will apologize. I took what was said and I applied it to my application. I wanted to make it clear that I'm not the only person with a septic tank. I understand that. That was my intention. When we discuss maintenance vehicles as they relate to the septic tank, I just wanted to make it clear that I'm not in a unique situation. That was my intent. So if I've taken what Ms. McIntosh said out of context, I will apologize to her. Was not my intention. Okay? The septic tank that I have proposed to put in is the largest one available. I recognize that nobody wants to see a septic truck come trundling down the road every 3 weeks, and I don't want to do that. I have discussed, I live in the rural area now. I have a septic tank in the field, and I understand what that looks like. The septic tank that I'm proposing is 11,250 liters. With the average output per person per day, if we can get it down to 100, and we're pretty good at water conservation. We lived on a cistern for 20 years, so we were very aware about what water conservation looks like. I'm hoping that we can get our septic tank cleaned out 6, perhaps 7 times a year, every 8 weeks or so. This is in an effort to minimize, for me, the cost of having the tank emptied, and to minimize the disruption to the neighborhood. I have no intention of being disruptive. Clearly, that's not the case, but I'm going to do my best. So the tank that I'm proposing is, like I said, the largest one available. The minimum requirement by law or by the environment is 1,000 gallons. Her comment to me was the same. Why would you do that? The truck coming is a 2,000 gallon tank truck. Why would you do 1,000 gallons? Makes no sense at all. I certainly wouldn't go smaller, so I'll go as big as I can. As far as where the well goes and where it relates to the septic tank, that's a me problem.
Again, that's outside of the scope of what we're getting here.
So it does relate somewhat to the septic tank and its location. If the well interferes with the tank will have to be moved in compliance with the environment permits. I have to get an application and a permit through them. It has to be approved and inspected. Otherwise, it can't be put where it's intended. So in keeping with that and in keeping with the existing wells of the neighbors, I can't put it where it's not allowed by the Environment Act. That's my intent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Whereas all representatives in regards to the variation application B7/22 to reduce the site area from 2 acres to approximately 0.29 acres, the site's width from 200 feet to 125 feet, the front yard setback from 125 feet to 30 feet, the side yard setback from 30 feet to 20 feet, and the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 15 to accommodate construction of a new home and garage on lot 1/5, block 5, Plan 331, located in northeast 35819 WPM. Parkers have been dealt with. Therefore, it be resolved that the reconvened public hearing be concluded. So we please move that. Councilman McDonald, seconder. Councilman McGregor, all in favor? Okay, next page is unfinished. We're at.
Yes.
Be it resolved that variation application number B7/22 to reduce the site area from 2 acres to approximately 0.29 acres, the site width from 200 feet to 125 feet, the front yard setback from 125 feet to 30 feet, the side yard setback from 30 feet to 20 feet, and the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet to accommodate construction of a new home and garage in lots 1/5, block 5, Land 331, located northeast 35819 WPM Partridge. Be approved, and we'll do it through that. That it should be done in a positive.
Do the positive, and then if it is defeated, then
Yeah.
there's no further recommendation required.
Right. So it'd be approved and further the zoning memorandum be provided outlining the property and any development thereon with the approved variations conforms to zoning bylaw number 04-2019. The second, please move that. Moved, Councilor McGregor, seconder. Councilor McDonald, discussion. I'm going to bring up something here that I think is important for all of us to remember. We are a welcoming municipality. We are not one that builds fences, we build bridges. There's been many people move here to raise a family, start a business. Over the last 4 years, we've had, this office has dealt out development permits to the value of $20,376,000. And that's both rural and Wawanesa. Wawanesa is at 8 million and the rural is at 12 million. Now, Wawanesa last year had the major school renovation, which was a major part of that. It's a good place to live. The population for our municipality in 2016 was 1,690 people. The population today is 1,758. We are growing because we are welcoming people to this. To just do it for the sake of the wrong reasons, to put something down is not right. To approve something that's not right is not right. So I will leave it at that. Councilors have any questions? Councilor McDonald.
So if approved, the permit requirements would definitely have to be all in place before and enforced before any construction would go on.
Well, the permits are in place and they can build, and they've got to be approved as they go along.
That's right. Okay, that's the question.
Mr. Chairman, out of all the applications that have been approved over the times that you stated, from your recollection, how many were opposed like this?
None. And I say that, one has to be very careful with that. Variations are different than what, like for subdivisions. Subdivisions we've approved and have not been granted by the provincial government. Variances are different, but there has not, unless I'm mistaken, there's something
I don't recall a variation that has been,
denied.
well, not that it's been denied, but that has received the amount of opposition.
Yeah.
The one thing I do recall with a lot of opposition was a rezoning application.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, my career path is all to do with developing infrastructure, planning, building communities. I can appreciate that anybody or any particular person has a desire to live in our community, and I'm very comforted by the fact that somebody would choose to do that. I would ask the council carefully consider what we're doing here. I mean, we paid a lot of money to put development plan in place. We put certain zonings in place. Those zonings have the intent to dictate the character and the nature of the environment that we hope to create there. And it's unfair, in my opinion, to basically consider going against that when the people who are there and have been there for a long time have a reasonable expectation that we would uphold that zoning requirement for the mere fact they likely purchased their property in that area for that very reason. I don't want to live in town. That's why I bought a parcel of land in this RM. I don't want somebody within shooting distance of my doorstep. That's why I bought it in the middle of a half section of property. That's our desire, and that's by the same reason I do believe most of the people who live at Lake Clemente purchased property there. The application that we've heard initially was non-conforming. I think council graciously accepted the opportunity or extended the opportunity to get the permission from the landowner. I don't think the development plan is complete enough to even consider the full extent or impact of it. I think it's clearly been demonstrated that it has injurious affection to the existing people there. If not physical, definitely emotional. There's an environmental impact that I think is not negligible. Maybe it can be mitigated or addressed. There's infrastructure requirements that have to be addressed. Some of that will fall on us because we will be looking after it for the rest of our time. So based on all of that, I would really ask that we really think about this carefully. I don't want us saying the president. I absolutely do want to see this municipality grow. I want to see development. I think there are many other innovative ways and places we can find opportunities to grow this community. I just heard today that somebody was considering moving to Wawanesa. They work at Maple Leaf for the simple reason they find it's a nice, they call it a bedroom community for lack of a better word. And those are the type of things we can start. I mean, one single development is not going to make or break the growth of this municipality. So I really think that we have to consider that very carefully. We have a number of people in this room that have been there for a long time, and I think we all have a reasonable expectation that our life will not get disrupted if we bought a piece of property under a certain zoning requirement.
Mr. Chairman? I think it's a really important distinction that this is not a subdivision. And that's why I pointed that out earlier, because I would view this differently if this was a subdivision.
It was a subdivision back in 1916.
So,
He subdivided.
excuse me,
I'm sorry.
the public hearing
This
is
is now-
over.
Just wait.
No,
And this
I'm
was
gonna, no, I'm
subdivided
gonna,
to
this is council now,
Mr.
please,
Mallon.
only.
I am saying that if we were being asked to subdivide, I would view this differently. I was not on council in 1960.
I remember.
I view it differently, and the reason that I view it differently is if we were being asked to create this parcel, I think that is a much different thing than being asked to give somebody the use of a parcel that was created over 100 years ago. The taxes have been paid on for over 100 years by the current owner. The report from planning says since 1989. So I hear the argument that you're paying taxes. I've heard that, but there's also somebody else here that's paying taxes on an asset that they own. And what you're asking us to do is to not give them the use of it or to diminish the value of it. And that doesn't feel right to me personally. So I know it's not the answer that most of the people in this room want to hear, but I'll be voting in favor of this because I do think it's very different to be asked for a variance, to be able to use property that was created over 100 years ago, rather than being asked to create or subdivide a small parcel like this, so.
Like, I appreciate your opinion, I really do. But also consider the fact that when this particular zoning was put in place, those parcels already existed. So council went into this zoning requirement determining what the requirement is, 2 acre lot, rural subdivision, rural residential, fully knowing that those little parcels already existed. And in my experience as a planner, being involved in planning, typically those parcels would get attributed to other parcels of land because it is non-conforming. That is the way that you typically deal with it. You offer it for purchase to the people next door, or they get right of first refusal. Government does that every day. I've been involved in many of those processes where you have what we call a remnant non-conforming parcel. It's offered to the guy next door. You want to buy it? If you don't want to buy it, then you put it up for auction, whatever the case may be. I appreciate your argument that it's a hardship on the person there, but there are people who are willing to buy it, is my understanding. I don't know that for a fact, but I heard that anecdotally. My concern is just that we spent the money and the time and effort, and I agree, it's not a subdivision, 100%. That's a completely different process. I understand that. But the fact still remains that there is an existing zoning requirement. And where do we draw the line when the next individual comes and says, well, I think I want to have a different land use here. It's not quite in line with your zoning requirement, but I want a variance, And if we talk about a minor variance, yeah, maybe it was 1.89 acres. I could say, sure, you know what? Nobody's going to be an asshole about that. But at the end of the day, we're talking here like an 86% village. You're taking a small little parcel, putting a development on there in an area that is big parcel predominantly. So I don't know why that gives you heartburn. I can appreciate your standpoint. But I still think we have to look out for the interest of our community. And the people who are there already are as much part of our community as a new individual who desires to want to live there, which I'm grateful for. But I think we have to serve the interest of the larger community first before we serve the interest of one individual. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to do there.
Councillor Corey, I think you're out to the site. Do you take the east side of that lot boundary?
Yeah.
How far is it to the next building,
I've never,
in your estimation?
I've never been good to this, to gauge distances, but it's quite a distance.
Quite a distance.
Yeah.
On the west side, how far is it from any structure?
Yeah, it's also quite a distance, for sure. No, I can
And I guess both ways. If you go to the south, again, it's quite a difference because it's got the hill.
Yeah.
There's been concern about the road and the lake and everything, and I look down the road and I see a place, there's a couple places there really close to the road, really closer to the water than this is.
I appreciate that, but we
I
do.
know, I'm just saying that when you're looking at it, you want to do is, consider it, the people that have been around it or that moved there and everything else. And I looked at, and I'm gonna go to the far west side of that road when we're coming into Lake Clementi. There's several buildings, several houses there. They're a lot closer together than what this will ever be to that house. Is that not correct?
I could agree with that, yeah. I could agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, I completely hear Councillor Furry. I would just make the point that your example of the land being offered to the adjacent property owners, we have done that before.
Yeah.
But we've done it when the municipality owns it.
No, I appreciate that.
And that's very different from somebody who has owned it and paid taxes on it, right? So, and then as far as the development plan, I also hear you, we did pay money, we paid a lot of money to get a development plan made. But a development plan is intended to be guidelines, it's not intended to be absolutely strict. There's a reason why there's these processes in place. The variation process, the change of use. The development plan can't deal with absolutely every single property in the municipality. And in my time on council, I can think of one situation where we had to almost immediately change the use of the land. I can think of variances that have been much greater than this, to be honest. So I completely agree. The development plan sets out really good guidelines, but when it's still up to council to interpret and decide what makes sense. And I think that's why we've all been out to the site. This isn't being taken lightly, I don't think, by anyone.
No, I don't think anybody is, and I appreciate that. But the development plan is there to determine the intent of the land use. And I think we're going against that. It's still residential, but it's definitely not rural. If you go with lot size of that, because then the next person will take the next level in and lot and do the same thing. And I have a challenge with that. I mean, I wanna, if I bought this property, because I had an expectation that nobody was gonna build in my next door. When I bought it from Craig, actually, to be honest, I had the expectation that I was not gonna have a neighbor anytime soon, in fact, never. Unless he tries to subdivide that property, which I did my homework and found out he's got a really small chance of being successful in doing that, if I had any say at that time. So, and to me, that's fair. I mean, as unfair as it might seem to the guy who owns the land, it's also unfair to the people that are there right now who went out of their way in some cases, as far as I understand, to meet this requirement. And now we just say, well, we don't think you need to do that anymore. I find that.
I don't think we're saying you don't have to do it anymore. I think that everything's a one-off. This is a one-off. This is not a carte blanche thing. This is a one-off
I
situation.
appreciate that.
But I think it's important to recognize that, and I think it's important to recognize your position that you put forward. And I think that's important too.
Mr. Chairman, I keep going back to this land
has been for sale. And now, you know, when the adjacent landowners have been there and always, it's been for sale for a while, but no interest was shown until now somebody wants to buy it. And that's what, and it's not like somebody's trying to subdivide a piece of property out of their 2-acre piece. This piece has been there for sale, like Councilor McGregor said, so.
But I believe the landowners, in the past were told that you needed 2 acres and that there would be no way that somebody would be able to put something on that property. So
That was my statement, is that if you go and let this go through, then you basically have to go through and let everyone that wants to do a little piece of
I'm
land
gonna
here,
say
there.
again, Mr. Millette, please, this is council now, this is not public.
and like I said previously, like my father-in-law has land in Brandon that he cannot build on. He pays taxes on it. He cannot build on it whatsoever. It happens and it's unfortunate, but it happens. And this piece of property was missed a long time ago. And just because it was for sale, it's kind of an irrelevant fact in terms of what the adjacent landowners were told by previous council, head of council, and CAO.
Anything further?
I got one question, and I don't even know if it's pertinent. I'd like to know how much the taxes were on this 0.29 of an acre.
Off the top of my head, I could not tell you.
Okay, well,
That we can't answer.
We can find out the assessment.
It's on, you can find the assessment, you won't find taxes. Because again, that's gonna be on the Brandon School Division, it's gonna be on, there's a number of things on
I
there.
know.
Okay,
We can have that in public session, Ken, following a proper process.
good.
You could probably do the calculations. I
Calculation.
could not go into our tax program and provide that information.
I have one final question. In similar cases like these, when members of the public have come up to check for a proposed subdivision or a variation, or how heavily do we weigh the wishes and desires of the existing people?
Well, I think
We're
that's,
looking at the interest of, I don't know how many people's in Lake Community, but let's say it's 10 against 1.
it's important. I think it's always important to listen to the ratepayers. I mean, we did that on a situation in, north of town here when we had a property we wanted to put an airstrip in. And we had,
That's a bad example.
you know, but it's a large group of people contested it and council listened to it. Council said no, and the federal government said yes. So he's got an airstrip.
But federal government had the jurisdiction, whereas in this case, I think the jurisdiction is devolved to us.
That's right. And it's pointed out very clearly in the report from the community plan.
Like the people buying the piece of property.
I'm sorry, Mr. Millette, I'm not gonna, please.
I can tell you the assessment.
No, that's fine. We're good. If there's nothing further, I'm gonna call for the question. Just to approve it, subject to memorandum and be provided outlining the property and any development there. Oh, conforming to the zoning bylaw section. All in favor? Opposed? Denied. Okay. Be resolved that that abuse and molestation policy number PER 015 be tabled pending additional information from Western Financial and Fillmore Riley. Can you please move that? Councilor Jones, seconder. Councilor Fisher, all in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the unaudited financial statement for the year ended December 31st, 2022 be approved as circulated. Can you please move that? Councilor McDonald, seconder, Councilor Hatch. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that this meeting does now adjourn. Let me please move that. Councilor Fisher, second, Councilor Corey, all in favor?
Thanks for your time.